Hello, everyone. How are you guys doing? Hey, Leslie Ann, how's it going? Hey, Nikki, welcome back. Patrick, what's up, Patrick? Hope, hey, Hope, how's it going? Fungus Rock. You have made it. You have made it. Hey, Losh, how's it going? Hmm. Hey, Katie, looking good today. Love the hair. Sipping strawberry watermelon Gatorade for Team Ling Lin. Someone's shipping Ling Lin. Hey, Peter, how's it going? So I guess we're not team Ling Ling. We're not Ling Hu Chong and Yue Ling Shan. I don't think we like her very much. Aaron, what's up, Aaron? User 326. Luna plays games. Hey, David. Wait, you can't hear me? Hello. All right, tell me if you can hear me, or am I just talking to no one? It's showing that people can hear. Anyone else prefer egg pudding in their milk tea instead of boba? Uh, I'm more a fan of boba. Yeah, I'm a simple guy. I like boba. Okay, you guys can hear me. It's just you, Katie. Wait, she can't hear me, so. Gotcha. What's up, Crimson Wyvern? Or Wyvern? Is that how you pronounce that? All right, update on the attic yokai situation. I still haven't caught the little bastard, but I do have some updates. I do. So one day, so it's not there all the time, right? So like every couple of days it'll come back and I'll hear it up in the attic. So one day I hear it moving up in the attic, and then I rush up to the attic. I climbed up and got a flashlight and looked around, and I saw a viewer of the channel. What? That's weird, right? Yeah, there's a viewer of the channel up there. I don't know what he's doing up there. No, I saw a possum. It was a possum yokai. It was pretty big too. How did it get into the roof? I think I know. Because I was looking around the house to see how it got in. Like, there's got to be like a hole in the roof or something. And I think I know where. Like under the eave of the roof in the backyard. I saw some like insulation, like stuck insulation on the ground and like stuck on uh part of the part of the underside of the roof, part of the eave. I think there's a hole there somewhere. I still haven't seen the hole. I need to climb up there and look. But I think that's what happened. So I uh so I have a trap, right? And it hasn't bitten yet. So but I think I know where it's staying. There's this little place, this little nook um place in the attic. I think that's where it's staying whenever it visits. So I made a little trail of apples to my trap. And I did that yesterday. So we'll see. Next time it visits, let's see if it bites. In fact, I have a picture, I do believe, on my Instagram. Let me check. Put the trap in the hole? I cannot put it in the hole. Because it doesn't fit in there. It's a pretty big trap. Dun, dun, dun. Wait, let me change the camera. Okay. Oh, crap. Oh no. I'm not logged in. Anyways, you can see it, right? Yeah. There's where it stays whenever it visits, and there's a little trail of apples to my trap. Crossing fingers. Let's hope it gets inside. Apparently they like apples. That's what I read. Hey Livia, you like the content? Well, thank you so much. Yeah, I love that you like the content. Wait, Hope, you found a baby possum in your toilet? What? Is that a kappa? What was it doing in your toilet? Oh my god, that is scary. My voice is nice and calm. Well, thank you so much, Luna. Linfamy is the coyote and the possum is the roadrunner. Okay, I do have some food. So remember, last week Hope from the chat sent me like some snacks. This is one of them. Oh wait, let me change camera. Hey, look! It's some baked wheat cake pastry. All right, let's take a bite before we do the stream. Oh, what's this? A bonus cake? Oh, let's see how this tastes. All right, what's inside of this thing? We shall see. Oh, I don't think it's cream filled, even though it says Hokkaido cream. It's just cake, I do believe. It's pretty good. It's not too sweet, just the right amount. I can just do this the entire stream. Just start eating shit. Hey, what's up, Tokini Andy? I don't know how to pronounce your name. Is it Tokini Andy or is it Tokini Andy? Everyone check out his YouTube channel. He's a YouTuber and he does like lessons, like Japanese lessons and stuff. They're pretty cool. Give you some? I wish I could give you some, but I can't. I'm sorry. I'm just gonna have to eat it all. Oh, there are little yellow spots of cream. Okay, maybe I'll get to it later. You eat with such grace? I guess. I'm just eating like a normal person. All right. Man, my dream is to have the trap catch the possum in my attic in the middle of the stream. So I can climb up there and then bring it down and show it to you guys. Man, I wish that happens. I wish that happens very much. But I don't think we're going to be that lucky. What's up, George? That's me, the graceful eater. All right, yeah, guys. Let's get on to the story. All right, let's do a recap of what happened last week. So last week, our hero, our kitsune, because remember we learned last week that the Hu in the name of our hero Ling Hu Chong means fox. Okay, it means kitsune. So he's our kitsune now, which is cool. So our kitsune Ling Huchong kicked down. Wait. So what happened was, remember last week, Tianbo Guang, the rapist, he goes up to the mountains, and he goes to where Ling Huchong is being punished. Okay, he has to meditate up in the mountains for a year, and he brings him some wine. Okay, and then they're drinking wine and they're having a conversation, and then suddenly Ling Huchong totally changes his demeanor, and he kicks down the wine jars, and he's like, "Hey, I am not going to cavort with you, the rapist. Okay, I'm your enemy." And then Tian Boguang reveals why he came up there. Okay, he wants to bring Ling Huchong down the mountains to find Yi Lin. Remember, the Yi Lin is the nun that has fallen in love with our hero. So Tian Boguang revealed that that's why he's coming up there, to bring Ling Huchong to Yi Lin so they can. I don't know what they want to do. But that's suspicious because Ling Huchong didn't believe it, right? But why would he be doing that? He doesn't have anything to do with Yi Lin. So Ling Huchong didn't believe it, so he didn't want to come down the mountain. So they make a bet, right? They make a bet that Ling Huchong has to defend 30 moves from Tian Boguang. Okay, if he could defend 30 moves, then he doesn't have to come down the mountain. But if he can't do that, then he has to come down with Tian Boguang. So they start fighting, and then Ling Huchong keeps losing, right? He keeps going back into the cave. He keeps losing, and then he keeps making excuses for why this isn't really a loss, because that's who he is. And he goes back, every time he loses, he goes back into the cave with all of those paintings of moves, secret martial arts moves. And he learns some new moves, and he comes out, and he fights another round. Okay? And he loses again, and then he keeps doing this thing keeps going back and forth, right? He keeps losing. But in the meantime, he's learning these new moves from the cave. So you can imagine that he's getting better and better at fighting, right? Because he knows all these new moves from all the different schools of martial arts. So, and then each time he comes in and comes out to fight, he becomes a little bit more powerful, right? Tian Boguang realizes that every time he comes in to the cave and comes out to fight again, he becomes a little bit stronger, right? And he can defend a few more moves of Tian Boguang's. So Boguang becomes suspicious. He's like, what is in that cave, right? And he deduces that, there must be some kind of martial arts master in the cave that's teaching Ling Huchong these moves, right? And then Ling Huchong, he's like, he just goes along with it, right? He's like, yeah, sure, yeah, there's totally a master in the cave teaching me some moves. And Bo Guang tries to guess who it is, and he says, is it Feng Qingyang inside the cave? And Feng Qingyang is this grandmaster, apparently, okay, from the old days. And Ling Huchang just goes along with it. He's like, yeah, sure. Yeah, it's Grandmaster Feng Qingyang who's in the cave. And then I think at the end, Tian Boguang wants to go inside the cave to take a look, right? And then as they were talking, a voice comes from inside the cave, kind of saying like, yes, I am Feng Qingyang. And if I taught Ling Huchang a few moves, then of course he'll be able to beat you. And then the chapter ends, okay? So for some reason, this guy is in the cave. And no one knew about it, even Ling Huchang, right? Because Ling Huchang was just going along with it. There was no one in the cave. So yeah, that's what happened last week. The possum needs a name? Oh no. So I told I think someone said that in the Instagram post too. I named our possum WAP, wet ass posse. How's that? How's that? Or is that too much? Put some peanut butter in the trap. Yeah, some people were telling me to put peanut butter too. But isn't that more for squirrels than for possums? I read like a bunch of articles. They say, hey, the possums really like apples, especially if they're going bad. So they like the bad smell. We shall see. Oh no, once I've named it, it's become my pet. Dum, 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 dum. All right, so we're naming it. It's wet ass posse. All right, well, let's wait till wet ass posse comes back, and hopefully we'll catch him. Oh, that would be so great if we catch him during the stream. Andy says everything likes peanut butter, but the internet knows more than me for sure. Everything likes peanut butter except for me. I don't know why you guys like it. It's so sticky and sweet. Way too sweet. The possum should be our Lin family mascot. Oh no. I want cuter mascots. Do you know how ugly possums are? I mean, baby possums, I guess they're cute. But I saw it up there. It wasn't cute. Terrifying. Alright, guys. Let's go to the live screen. And we shall start right now. Alright, Chapter 10, Sword Training, Part 1. Ling Huchong was thunderstruck. AC/DC fan. He turned around and saw an old man with a gray beard and a green robe standing in front of the cave's opening. The old man had a somewhat depressed expression on his face, which was as white as a sheet. Could this old man be the masked man in green robe I saw the other night? Where is he from? When did he come right behind my back? How come I didn't feel a thing and had no idea about it? He couldn't help but feel bewildered. Are you really Grandmaster Feng? Jiang Boguang asked in a trembling voice. Welcome to live reading with Linfamy, where every chapter all the characters' voices change dramatically. It has gotten to be rare for people in this world to still remember my name. The old man heaved a sigh. In the instant, many thoughts flashed through Ling Huchong's mind. There is still a senior Grand Master of our Huashan Sword School still alive today? Why haven't I ever heard Master or Master Wife mentioning anything about it? What if he's just an imposter who took the opportunity from Tian Boguang's words? Wouldn't everyone in the martial world laugh at our Huashan Sword School if I recklessly salute him as a junior? Besides, what a big coincidence is this? As soon as Tian Boguang mentioned the name Feng Qingyang, a Feng Qingyang suddenly shows up right away. Ling Huchong, what a useless lad you are. The old man shook his head with another sigh. Let me teach you. Use the move White Aurora shooting the sun first, and follow up with Graceful Phoenix. Then use Golden Geese crossing the sky, followed with Sword Interception Stance. He talked on in a flow of eloquence, and soon mentioned the names of 30 different moves. Ling Huchong had learned all the 30 moves before, but the sword positions and the stances of those moves didn't seem to connect at all. What are you waiting for? Oh, I see. With your current understanding of martial arts, it isn't easy to just perform all 30 of them at once, indeed. Why don't you try them out slowly, first, the old man instructed. His voice was low and deep, and his face looked desolate. It almost appeared as if he had infinite grievance, yet there was a certain majestic feel in his tone. Well, there's nothing to lose if I give it a try, Ling Hucheng thought to himself. So he performed the white aurora shooting the sun move and thrust his sword with the sword tip pointing up. Then he got stuck, having no clue how to connect the second move, graceful phoenix, to it. Alas! Idiot! Idiot! Only able to rigidly adhere to formalities with no adaptation. No wonder you are an apprentice of Yue Bu Chun. The art of swordplay calls for fluency, like floating clouds and flowing water, natural and smooth, come and go freely. After you finished the move White Aurora shooting the sun, and had your sword tip pointing up, couldn't you just follow the flow and slash it downwards? Even though there's no such posture in the move, why can't you adapt to the flow and make it more convenient for yourself? Now, giving him some pointers. The martial arts pointers. The words struck Ling Hucheng's ears like bell rings and woke him. Slightly pulling the sword back with a slash, he naturally transformed it into the move Graceful Phoenix. Before it was entirely done, he had already changed it again and smoothly transformed it into the move Golden Geese Crossing the Sky. The long sword swished across above his head, and then with a hook and a jab, it easily turned into sword interception stance. All the connections and transformations appeared to be smooth and flawless. With the ease of mind, he continued performing one move after another, following the old man's instruction. By the time he stopped at the move ringing bells and drums, it was exactly a total of 30 moves. All of a sudden, Ling Hucheng felt indescribable joy. On the old man's face, however, there was no trace of approval whatsoever. You got them connected all right, but see how stiff and rigid they are? Also very clumsy. Even though you are still far from capable of fighting a master hand, it would be enough to deal with that little chap over there. Go ahead and try them out on him, he demanded. Ling Hucheng didn't quite believe that the old man was his grand-uncle master, but he was quite convinced that the old man had to be an elite kung fu master. His sword pointing down at the ground, he bowed to salute to the old man, then turned to face Tian Bo Guang. Brother Tian, please go ahead. I've seen you perform all 30 moves. What's there to fight about? Tian Bo Guang questioned. If Brother Tian doesn't want to fight, that's totally alright. Will you please leave now? I'd like to ask for some advice from this senior master here. Sorry, I can't be your company now, Ling Hucheng said. What are you talking about? Do you expect me to just die for nothing, only because you don't want to go down Mount Huashan with me? Oh yeah, remember, he revealed that, Tian Bo Guang revealed that he was poisoned, and he also had one of his meridian points sealed, the death point, right? So he's going to die if he doesn't bring Ling Hucheng down the mountain. He turned to the old man. Grandmaster Feng, Tian Bo Guang is only a senior here. I am not worthy to exchange moves with you, the respectful one. If you join in the fight, it would be really beneath your dignity. The old man nodded his approval with another sigh. He slowly walked by a big rock and sat down. Tian Bo Guang felt great relief. Look out, he yelled, and brought his knife swishing down upon Ling Hucheng's head. Ling Hucheng dodged to the side and stabbed back with his long sword. The move was the fourth move, sword interception stance, the old man had told him earlier. Once starting his attack, he poured out many continuous moves with ease. Some of the moves he used were among the ones named by the old man, and some were outside of those 30 moves the old man had told him, since he had comprehended the essence of the phrase, floating clouds and flowing water, natural and smooth, come and go freely. His sword skills improved dramatically, and the fight went on well over 100 moves. Oh, 100 moves. I think he just won the bet. So he's like, yeah, just that one line from the old man. Just like the way you fight, the way you fight shouldn't be as rigid as what you were taught. Because what he was taught by his master, Yue Bu Chun, was very strict, right? And this old man is totally the opposite. He's like, no, martial arts should be like water. It should be natural and smooth. All of a sudden, Tian Guang roared loudly and chopped straight down. Knowing that it would be very difficult to dodge out of that one in time, Ling Hucheng snapped his wrist and pointed his longsword toward Tian Guang's chest. Tian Guang turned his knife around and smacked it at the sword. Clank! The knife and the sword clashed. Tian Guang didn't wait for Ling Hucheng to pull back his sword. He simply let go of his own knife and jumped forward. Reaching out with his two hands, he seized Ling Hucheng's throat in a stranglehold. Ling Hucheng was almost suffocated. In the rush, he dropped his longsword as well. If you don't come with me, your old man here will choke you to death, Tian Guang yelled out. He had been calling Ling Hucheng a brother earlier with a very respectful tone. After the fierce fight of over 100 moves, he really lost his temper and started calling himself Ling Hucheng's old man after he seized Ling Hucheng's throat. Not able to breathe, Ling Hucheng still shook his head as his face went purple from the choking. 100 moves or 200 moves, it doesn't matter. As long as I am winning, you'll have to go down Mount Huashan with me. The hell with the bet on the 30 moves thing. Your old man, I don't care. Tian Guang cursed between his teeth. Ling Hucheng wanted to laugh, but with Tian Guang's hands choking into his throat hard, he couldn't make any sound. You idiot! Your finger can be used as a sword too. Do you absolutely have to use a real sword for that treasures all over the room move? The old man reproved. Those words worked the magic as a flash lighted in Ling Hucheng's mind. He thrust out with his right hand and used the move treasures all over the room. His middle finger and index finger struck the Tanzhong point on Tian Guang's chest in a jab. Tian Guang uttered a muffled groan and collapsed onto the ground, his hands letting go of Ling Hucheng's throat. Ah, nice job. Ling Hucheng had no idea that such a casual jab would actually subdue the 10,000 miles loner Tian Guang, a man who enjoyed great fame for his kung fu skills in the martial world. In such an easy manner, he gently rubbed his own throat, which was still hurting uncomfortably from Tian Guang's choking, and then looked down at the evil rapist, who laid on the ground huddled up, twitching involuntarily. Seeing Tian Guang showing the whites of his eyes and having lost his consciousness, Ling Hucheng found himself deeply amazed and overjoyed. Instantly, he felt tremendous admiration toward the old man. Rushing by the old man's side, he knelt down and kowtowed. That means bowed. Grand Uncle Master, will you please pardon me? I have treated you with such disrespect. You don't think I am just swindling and bluffing now? The old man let out a slight smile. I dare not. Grand Master Feng, I am so fortunate to be able to meet a senior Grand Master of our school. This is so marvelous. He kowtowed more. You can get up now, the old man, Feng Qingyang, said. Only after another 3 respectful kowtows, Ling Hucheng stood up. Noticing that the old man had a very pale and pallid complexion, looking wan and sallow, he asked, Grand Uncle Master, are you hungry? I have some food in the cave. Let me go get them. He turned around and headed toward the cave. No need for that. Feng Qingyang shook his head. Dr. Kick, you love kowtowing to your teachers? Really? I want you to kowtow to me right now. That's right, Losh. The Grandmaster is like Bruce Lee. Be like the water. Flow like water. He squinted at the sun and then murmured, The sunshine is so warm. It has been a long time since I last basked in the wonderful sunshine. Ling Hucheng was taken by surprise, but he dared not ask. Feng Qingyang threw a glance at the huddled-up Tian Guang on the ground. You have jabbed onto his Tanzhong point, he said. With his mastery of martial arts, he will be he will probably regain his consciousness in 2 hours. Bert. By then, he'll start another round of harassing. Once you beat him one more time, he would have no choice but to behave and leave. After you subdue him, you must force him to swear a deadly oath that he would never mention it to anyone that he had seen me. When I won earlier, it was only because I got lucky and took him by surprise. I am still no match for him with my sword skills. To be able to subdue him, Ling Huchang murmured. Feng Qingyang shook his head. You are Yue Buchun's apprentice. I really shouldn't teach you any kung fu. That day, I swore an oath that I would never fight anyone in the remainder of my life. When I demonstrated the sword moves to you the other night, I just wanted to let you know that if one executes the Huashan Sword School's 19 stances of the Jade Maiden Sword the right way, how can anyone ever flick the sword out of your grip? I suppose if I don't make you do the work, I won't be able to force a deadly oath out of Tianpo Guang, promising not to let out the secret. You, follow me. So it looks like Feng Qingyang saw, if you remember like a couple of chapters back, Feng Qingyang saw that Ling Huchang was sparring against his master wife, and the master just flicked his sword out of Ling Huchang's hand, and it broke into pieces. Right? It looks like Feng Qingyang was mad that he could do that, and he wanted to show Ling Huchang that one day that he showed up in the cave to fight him. He wanted to show that Yue Bushun couldn't do that to his sword, right? To Feng Qingyang's own sword. He couldn't do that to him. Feng Qingyang walked in the cave and entered the back cave through the hole on the rock wall. Ling Huchang followed in behind him. You have studied and memorized all those drawings of Huashan-style sword art on the rock wall. When you used them, though, they were all totally off, alas. Feng Qingyang pointed at the rock wall and shook his head. Ling Huchang thought to himself, so when I was studying those drawings here during those many times, Grand Uncle Master had been watching me. I guess every time I was simply too focused in studying and didn't even notice that someone else was actually in the cave as well. If Grand Uncle Master had been an enemy, if he were an enemy, even if I had found out about it, would I then have any chance of surviving? The chap, Yue Buchun, is a total moron. Just insulted his teacher. You are very good apprentice material, but he turned you into a dumb fool with his teaching, Feng Qingyang continued. Hearing Feng Qingyang's humiliating words to his respectful master, Ling Huchang was very displeased. Grand Uncle Master, I don't want you to teach me anymore. I'll just go outside and force Tianpo Guang to swear the oath, promising that he will never let out Grand Uncle Master's secret, he said in a bold tone. Feng Qingyang was seized by surprise, but it only took him an instant to understand the reason behind. What if you don't agree? Are you going to kill him? He asked dryly. Ling Huchang hesitated and didn't know how to answer. He thought that since Tianpo Guang had never intended to kill him, even when he won the many fights, how could he himself be so cruel to kill Tianpo Guang immediately after he got the upper hand? You are blaming me for swearing at your master, aren't you? Fine, I won't mention his name anymore. He calls me Uncle Master. It should be all right for me to call him a chap, shouldn't it? Feng Qingyang asked. Grand Uncle Master, if you stop scolding my respectful master, of course I will listen to your advice, cautiously, Ling Huchang replied. This is almost like I am begging you to learn from me, Feng Qingyang was amused. Oh, Losh, it was when Ling Huchang flicked Yue Lingshan's sword? Okay. Gotcha. So it looks like Feng Qingyang doesn't have a high opinion of Ling Huchong's master. I wonder why. Hmm. I dare not, Grand Uncle Master, I beg your pardon. Ling Huchong bowed. Feng Qingyang pointed at the drawings of the Huashan style sword art on the rock wall and started explaining. These moves are indeed the unique moves among all schools' sword arts. Most of them have been long lost, and even even your master doesn't know them. Even though they are brilliant moves, when you use them one at a time, others would still be able to overcome them. Hearing these words, Ling Huchang felt a sudden inspiration and vaguely understood an ultimate principle of sword art. He couldn't help but show a wild, joyful face. This is the face of someone who loves martial arts. What have you figured out? Tell me about it, Huang Qingyang requested. Grand Uncle Master, are you saying that if all the moves become an integral whole, then the enemy would have no way of breaking them? Ling Huchang stated. Didn't I say that you are good material? You have very good comprehension. Huang Qingyang nodded happily. Those demon cult elders. He pointed at the staff-wielding figure on the rock wall as he spoke. Is that an elder of the demon cult? Ling Huchang asked in bewilderment. Didn't you know? The 10 skeletons are the remains of the demon cult 10 elders, Feng Qingyang said while pointing at a skeleton on the ground. Why did all the demon cult elders fall dead here? Ling Huchang became quite curious. Xiaobo Guang will wake up in 2 more hours. If you keep asking about these past events of many years ago, do you think you'll have time left to learn some kung fu? Feng Qingyang reproved. Right, Grand Uncle Master, please, go on, Ling Huchang replied. Those demon cult elders had a truly outstanding and brilliant minds. They were able to defeat the advanced moves of the 5 mountains sword alliance cleanly and completely, Feng Qingyang sighed. They didn't know, however, that the most devastating move in the world is not inside kung fu, but in setting up schemes, intrigues, and traps. If one falls into someone's clever trap, regardless of how brilliant his kung fu moves are, it would still be completely useless. At these words, he raised his head and fell into a daze. Apparently, he had remembered many things from the past. Hearing the bitterness in his tone and seeing the anguished look on his face, Ling Huchang dared not interrupt and only thought to himself, could it be true that the 5 mountains sword alliance really had no way to win in a fair fight, so they tricked the enemy into a trap? Grand Uncle Master Feng is a member of the 5 mountains sword alliance, but he probably didn't object to such contemptible means. I guess in order to counter the enemies from the demon cult, it is probably necessary to use some contemptible means. Feng Qingyang went on talking. If we judge them by their understanding of advanced kung fu theories, these demon cult elders shouldn't be counted as ones who have entered the realm of top-level kung fu. They didn't know that moves are static, but the ones executing the moves is alive. No matter how clever the counter move is for breaking static moves, as soon as they encounter moves performed in a lively way, they would feel like their arms and legs are all tied up and would have no other choice but to give themselves up to the opponent's mercy. You must remember the key word lively here. When you learn a move, you learn it in a lively way. When you execute a move, you also execute it lively. If you only rigidly adhere to formalities without adding your own lively elements, even if you have mastered thousands or tens of thousands of unique moves, as soon as you encounter a true elite master hand, you would still be able to overcome every single one of them. So I guess you gotta fight in a lively way. I think that means like a fluid way, a flexible way, instead of following the moves rigidly. Ling Huchang felt tremendous joy in his heart. He was the unrestrained and unconventional type. Each of Feng Qingyang's word struck a chord in his heart. He kept agreeing and agreeing. Yes, one must learn it lively and use it lively. So remember, Ling Huchang is that kind of a person, right? So this type of martial arts is really it really fits with his personality. He's not one to follow all the rules. Each of the 5 mountain sword schools have countless number of idiots who believe that as long as they become proficient with the sword moves taught by their masters, then naturally they would become elite fighters. He paused, then let out a disgruntled snort. You must have heard of the saying, once memorizing 300 poems well, one will be capable to write poems himself. After memorizing others' poems well, one might be able to write a couple of ragged verses, but without being original in conception, can he ever become a real poet? Feng Qingyang criticized. His criticism naturally included Yue Buchun as one of the idiots he had mentioned. But since firstly, Ling Huchang felt the comments were quite convincing, and secondly, Feng Qingyang didn't mention Yue Buchun's name specifically, he didn't argue. Learn it lively and use it lively is only the first step. Only when you can fight with no moves, you will eventually reach the realm of a true elite fighter. When you said all the moves become an integral whole, then the enemy would have no way of breaking them earlier. You've only gotten less than half right. It's not an integral whole, but simply no moves. No matter how hard you work on making the moves an integral whole, as long as there is a trace of the connection, your enemy would have a flaw to exploit. If you don't have any moves at all, then how is your enemy going to break your move? Ling Hucheng's heart thumped wildly, and even his palms became burning hot as he mumbled, No move at all? How do you break it? No move at all, how do you break it? Suddenly, a whole new world he had never seen before or even dreamed about, appeared in front of his eyes. Feng Qingyang continued, If you want to slice a piece of meat, you need to have the piece of meat before you can slice it. If you want to cut some firewood, you need to have the firewood before you can cut it. If your enemy wants to break your sword move, he needs to have your sword move before he can break it. When an ordinary person who has never learned any kung fu waves a sword wildly, no matter how knowledgeable you are, you still wouldn't be able to predict where his next thrust or chop will land. Even someone with the most advanced sword skills still wouldn't be able to defeat his move, because there is no move. Because there is no move, it's impossible to break the move. If this person has never learned any kung fu, then even though he doesn't have a sword move, others can still knock him down easily. True first-class sword art, on the other hand, will enable you to control others, not to be controlled by others. Nikki, nice. He's telling an alcoholic to be like water. He'll catch on. He picked up a shin bone from the ground and randomly pointed one end of it at Ling Hucheng. How are you going to break this move of mine? Ling Hucheng had no idea what that move was. After a pause, he said, This is not a move, so there's no way to break it. That's correct, Feng Qingyang smiled. When a kung fu practitioner uses a weapon or throw punches and kicks, he would always have moves. All you need to know is how to overcome it. And once you do know how, you can easily defeat his move and subdue him. But what if the enemy didn't have any move either? Ling Hucheng asked. Then he must be a first-class elite fighter also. The result of the fight could go either way. Maybe you are better, or maybe he is better. Feng Qingyang answered. He let out a sigh and said, In today's world, it is very difficult to find such an elite fighter. If by chance you meet one or two, then you have really good fortune. During my entire life, I've only met 3 of them. Who are these 3? Ling Hucheng couldn't help but ask. So he's saying, wait, you have to fight with no moves. You have to fight with no moves. What does that mean? Feng Qingyang stared at him for a short while and then split into a smile. Among Yue Buchun's apprentices, there's actually one who likes to poke his nose everywhere and not willing to devote himself to sword training. Great, wonderful. Sorry, I am wrong. Ling Hucheng blushed and quickly bowed for forgiveness. No, you are not wrong. Feng Qingyang smiled. You are a lively lad, just the type to my liking. We don't have much time left. You go ahead and work on merging all the 30 to 40 Huashan-style sword art moves together. Think how you can get them going smoothly with no interruption, and then try to forget all of them. You need to forget all of them completely without leaving a single one in your head. Then, a bit later, you can use the Huashan-style sword art with no moves to fight Jiang Boguang. Yes, Ling Hucheng answered, feeling half surprised and half pleased. So I'm not sure I got all of that. Someone in the chat explain it to me, if you can. So I think so you have to first know all of the moves, all right? Now he's got to work on like kind of making all the moves work together, and then just forget all about it, right? So I think you got to just fight with your intuition and not have these moves in your head. So you're not going like, oh, I'm going to use this move to block that the enemy's move, and I'm going to use this move to block that attack. You just fight with intuition, and not have all those moves inside your head. Ling Hucheng studied the drawings on the rock with rapt attention. During the past several months, he had memorized the Huashan-style sword moves on the rock wall well, so he didn't have to spend any time learning the moves. All he had to do was try to connect all the distinct and separate sword moves together. Everything must be following the natural rhythm. Act when you have to act, and stop when you have to stop. If you simply can't connect some of them, then don't connect them. In short, don't force anything, Feng Qingyang pointed out. Ling Hucheng nodded. Since all he had to do was to follow the natural flow, it became an easy task for him to, regardless of connecting them cleverly or clumsily. Soon he had connected all the 30 to 40 moves of Huashan-style sword art together. Okay, the chat is explaining. If you know all the moves, you know what not to do in order to use no moves. That's what Fungus Rock is saying. Nikki says, practice until it becomes muscle memory, then zone out while you're fighting. Okay. That could be bad, though. Chip says, swing in random directions. Okay, I like that. And Losh says, it's like Picasso's art. He mastered all the techniques, then didn't specifically use any for his own art. And George says, that's right. So it's okay. I hope that makes sense. I kind of get it now. Where am I? But to merge all of them into one with no traceable rigid gaps was not so easy. He waved his sword, sometimes slashing to the left, sometimes chopping to the right, without thinking about any moves drawn on the rock wall. He didn't care if his posture or position was close to the drawing or not, and simply followed his own will. Occasionally, when he had a smooth one, he couldn't help but feel quite pleased with himself. He had been in sword training for over 10 years. Every time when he practiced, he would always stay very focused with all his heart, not daring to slack in any way. Yue Buchun was a very strict teacher. Yeah, you can see that, right? When his apprentices practiced forms or sword arts, if anyone's arm or leg were slightly off from the perfect position, he would immediately correct them. Everyone's every move or posture had to be in the absolute perfect position without a single error to get his approval. Ling Hucheng was the first and most senior apprentice. Besides, he was always eager to do well in everything and excel over others. In order to gain praises from master and master wife, he always put in extra effort to be strict with himself. Feng Qingyang, on the other hand, had taught in a totally opposite way. The more casual, the better. That fit with his personality just perfectly. He felt the kind of carefree and joy beyond words, and it seemed as if the pleasure was even more enjoyable than drinking age-old good wine. While he was still intoxicated in practicing, Jiang Boguang had shouted from the outside. Losh says, I already feel my kung fu has improved. Me too. I feel like I can beat, I don't know, that I can beat that freaking possum. That wet ass posse. Posse. Brother Ling Hu, will you please come out so we can have another contest? That brought Ling Hu Chang back to reality. He stopped and stood still. Grand Uncle Master, do you think this random slashing and chopping style sword form of mine will enable me to block his fast knife chops? Ling Hu Chang asked hopefully. If you want to block, of course it won't help you much. But why do you have to block? Feng Qingyang said. Ling Hu Chang immediately got the idea. And the feeling of joy washed over him. That's right. He is begging me to go down Mount Huashan with him, so of course he dare not to kill me. In that case, despite what knife moves he uses, I can simply ignore them and just focus on my own attacks. Ling Hu Chang stepped out of the cave with his sword in his hand and saw Tian Boguang waiting with his knife drawn. Brother Ling Hu, after Grandmaster Fang gave you some knacks and pointers, your sword skills surely improved a lot. However, when you sealed my point just now, it was only because of my oversight. I am not convinced yet. Let's have another fight, Tian Boguang suggested. You're trying to figure out my wallpaper? I'll let you see it. I don't know where I got it from. It's some kind of painting. Yeah. Isn't that nice? Alright, guys. Let's take a break. Alright? 5-minute break before this fight starts. Wolfin, hello. Hey. How's it going? Alright, I'll be right back. 5 minutes. Alright, I'm back. What's up, Jimmy the Great? How's it going? What is the name of the song? Yeah, I don't know the name. Sorry. It's from, it's a theme. Well, I don't know if it's a theme song, but it's music from one of the old like martial arts series called the Zoo Mountain Saga. I don't know, you want to look it up. Alright, I'm gonna take another bite of this thing here. I haven't reached the cream yet. There's no cream. Which is fine, it's pretty good. '80s music. What, is it's too old for you guys? Alright, I'll play something new. It's so big. It's gigantic. I can barely fit it into my mouth. What is the snack name? Alright. Hokkaido cream baked wheat cake pastry roll. A soft and pleasantly, what does that say? A soft and pleasantly sweet bread, each baked with the natural goodness of brown rice yeast. Brown rice yeast. Alright. So, the Grandmaster Feng just taught him, like, just fight with your intuition, okay? Don't just think of, don't keep those moves in your head. Just fight with your intuition. Just go with the flow, man. Go with the flow. Let's see how he does. Fine. Ling Hucheng answered as he thrust his sword out in a crooked manner. The blade wobbled as it moved forward. There was no strength attached in the thrust at all. What kind of a move is that? Tian Boguang was bewildered. Seeing Ling Hucheng's sword getting closer, Tian Boguang was just about to fend it off using his knife when Ling Hucheng suddenly pulled his right hand back and jabbed the sword toward an empty space. Then following the jab, Ling Hucheng retracted the sword quickly. The sword handle almost struck his own chest when he flicked his wrist, which sent the sword handle to another empty space to his right. Tian Boguang was even more bewildered. He threw a gentle probing chop cautiously. Ling Hucheng didn't even care to dodge, and simply drove his sword tip toward his opponent's lower stomach in an angle. How weird! Tian Boguang shouted as he turned his knife around to block it. After the two exchanged several moves, Ling Hucheng started using the Huashan-style sword moves on the rock wall, attacking without any defending, almost as if he was just practicing sword form all by himself. The continuous attacks sent Tian Boguang into a frantic rush. If you decide to ignore this chop of mine again, don't blame me when I chop your arm off, Tian Boguang shouted. It's not going to be that easy, Ling Hucheng grinned as he initiated another 3 thrusts. All attacked from very odd and unusual positions. Relying on his fast eyes and quick hands, Tian Boguang successfully fended all of them off. Just when he was about to start his counterattack, Ling Hucheng suddenly threw his longsword straight up in the air. Tian Boguang looked up at the sword in the air when suddenly a heavy punch landed squarely on his nose. Sound effect. Threw his sword up, and then punched him on the nose. Blood immediately gushed out from his nose. While Tian Boguang was still in shock, Ling Hucheng used his hand as a sword and stabbed it out, and it struck Tian Boguang on his Tanjong point once again. Tian Boguang slowly collapsed down, his face covered with a mixture of confusion and anger. Wait, that's a slap. Ling Hucheng turned around and Feng Qingyang called him back into the cave. You just got yourself another 3 hours for sword training. Nice. He is hurt even worse this time. He won't be able to wake up as easily as the last time. Only that, when you fight him the next time, maybe he'll go all out and might not yield to you anymore. You must be very careful. Go ahead and try out those Hangshang-style sword art moves, Feng Qingyang suggested. Ah, he did pretty well, huh? Beat him. He beat him. Just after like 1 hour of training by this Grandmaster. After getting more pointers and advice from Feng Qingyang, Ling Hucheng used each move as if there was no move, with the essence of the move, but without the form of it. Those unique Hangshang-style sword moves by themselves were already extremely unpredictable and volatile. Now it was even more difficult to find any trace of gap among them. After Tian Boguang woke up, the two of them fought another 70 to 80 more moves before Tian Boguang got knocked down once again. It was already quite late in the day. Ling Hucheng placed Tian Boguang, who was unable to move at all because of the sealed pressure points, behind some big rocks when Lu Dayou brought food up the cliff, while Feng Qingyang stayed inside the back cave. Okay, Lu Dayou is the, remember, he's the 6th apprentice brother, and he's kind of his best friend. 6th apprentice brother, I am having some real good appetites these days. Will you please bring some extra food tomorrow? Ling Hucheng asked. Lu Dayou could tell that his big apprentice brother's face glowed with health and radiated vigor, while quite different from the depressed and upset one in the last couple of months. He couldn't help with his joy. He also noticed that Ling Huchong's robe was soaked with sweat, and thought that Ling Huchong must have been practicing assiduously with his sword techniques. "Great! I'll bring up a large basket full of food tomorrow," he said. After Lu Dayou left, Ling Huchong opened Tian Boguang's sealed pressure points and invited him and Feng Qingyang to have dinner together. Feng Qingyang had enough after only a half bowl full of rice. Tian Boguang, on the other hand, felt very aggrieved and had no appetite at all, raking the food in his mouth and pouring out streams of abuses at the same time. Suddenly, with a loud crack, the china bowl in his hand smashed into pieces from the tremendous forces coming from his grip. Broken china pieces and rice fell all over his clothes and the floor. "Brother Tian, why are you being so hard on a rice bowl?" Ling Huchong burst into loud laughter. "Damn it, I am being hard on you!" Tian Boguang yelled in rage. "When we fought, you took advantage of me and spared no effort in defending yourself whatsoever, only because I didn't want to kill you. Tell me, you think this is fair? If I hadn't given ground to you, I'd have chopped your head off within 30 moves. Ha! Damn the little. Obviously, he wanted to scold Yilin, the little nun, but for some reason he stopped short. Instead, he stood up and drew his knife. "Ling Huchong, come and fight me again, if you got the guts," he yelled out. "Fine," Ling Huchong replied and stepped forth, sword in hand. Using the same strategy again, Ling Huchong paid no attention to Tian Boguang's fast knife chops and simply stabbed his sword at Tian Boguang with clever moves. But this time, Tian Boguang was quite relentless. After they exchanged about 20 or so moves, he threw 2 chops. One landed on Ling Huchong's thigh, and the other one left a cut on Ling Huchong's left arm. He had shown some mercy after all. Neither of the 2 wounds was critical. In astonishment accompanied by great pain, Ling Huchong found himself in a very awkward position. His sword techniques became very sluggish, and only a few moves later, Tian Boguang kicked him down to the ground. "Do you want more fights?" Placing the sharp blade right next to Ling Huchong's throat, Tian Boguang yelled, "Huh! I'll make sure to leave a couple of cuts on you every time. So even though you won't die, your blood will drain and your arms and legs will look really good." "Of course I want more fights. Even if I can't beat you, do you think my grand uncle Master Feng would just look on with folded arms and let you ride roughshod?" Ling Huchong rebuffed with a smile. So it looks like he was losing because he didn't want to hurt Ling Huchong. But now he's like, I'm just going to cut you. I don't care. "Here's a senior Grand Master. He won't pick a fight with me," Tian Boguang said as he moved his knife away. Fearing that Feng Qingyang might start a fight out of anger because he had wounded Ling Huchong, Tian Boguang was actually quite apprehensive. Even though Feng Qingyang looked very old, he sure wasn't rotten. From Feng's piercing eyes, Tian Boguang could tell that Feng must have excellent inner energy, not mentioning his godlike sword skills. He figured that Feng didn't even have to kill. All Feng needed to do was to drive him down Mount Huashan, and that would be just as bad. Ling Huchong tore a piece of his robe off and used it to wrap up the 2 wounds before entering the cave. Grand Uncle Master, that chap has changed his strategy and decided to cut me for real now. If my right arm gets wounded and can't use a sword anymore, it would be impossible to beat him." Ling Huchong shook his head in a wry smile. "Luckily, it's late already. You can tell him that you'll fight him again tomorrow morning. Let's not sleep tonight. I'll use the entire night to teach you 3 sword moves," Feng Qingyang instructed. 3 moves? Ling Huchong repeated, not understanding why a mere 3 sword moves would take up an entire night to learn. "You look like a smart one. I wonder if you are really that smart or only look like one. If you are truly smart, then you might be able to learn the 3 sword moves within the night. If you aren't smart and only have ordinary comprehension, then there would be no need to fight him again tomorrow morning. and you can simply admit your failure and follow him off Mount Huashan, Feng Qingyang said. Hearing those words from his grand uncle master, Ling Huchang knew that the 3 sword moves must be very extraordinary and sophisticated. That actually aroused his willingness to take on the challenge. Grand Uncle Master, he said fearlessly, if I can't learn these 3 sword moves within one night, then I'd rather die from his blade than surrender and leave Mount Huashan with him. Good, Feng Qingyang smiled. He raised his head and thought for quite a while before finally saying, to learn 3 moves within one night is really asking for the impossible. You won't need the second move just yet. We can work on only the first one and the third one. But many of the variations in the third move come from the second move. Very well, let's ignore all the related variations and see if it will work. He was more like talking to himself, but after thinking about it for a moment, he shook his head. Seeing the worried look on Feng Xingyang's face, Ling Huchang became very anxious. The harder it is to learn a type of martial arts, of course, the more powerful it will be. Then he heard Feng Qingyang murmuring again. If he forgets one of the 360 variations in the first move, then he would get to the third move wrong. That's not going to work. Ling Huchang was astonished when he heard that only the first move already contained 360 variations. Feng Qingyang started counting with his fingers. Wei Mei tends towards Wu Wang. Wu Wang tends towards Tong Ren. Tong Ren tends towards Da Yao. Jia turns into Bing. Bing turns into Geng. Geng turns into Kui. Ji connects Chou. Chen connects Zhi. Wu connects Wei. Wind to thunder is one change. Mountain to lake is one change. Water to fire is one change. Xiang and Kun activate each other. Jun and Dui activate each other. Li and Shi activate each other. 3 increases to 5. 5 increases to 9. The more he counted, the more worried he looked. Finally, he said, he's like talking to himself. Finally, he said with a heavy sigh, Chuang, when I learned this move, it took me 3 months. To expect you to learn 2 moves in one night is really like a joke. Think about it. Wei Mei tends toward Wu Wang. At those words, he stopped talking and apparently was lost deep in thought. After a long while, he asked, Now, where was I? Grand Uncle Master, you said Wei Mei tends towards Wu Wang. Wu Wang tends towards Tong Ren. Tong Ren tends towards Da Yao, Ling Huchang answered. Ah, you've got good memory. What's next? Feng Qingyang raised his eyebrows. Grand Uncle Master said, Jia turns into Bing. Bing turns into Geng. Geng turns into Kui. Ling Huchang recited along and was actually able to repeat almost half of what Feng Qingyang said, but he could no longer remember the rest of it. Have you learned the general index of the Dugu 9 swords before? Feng Qingyang was astonished. No, I have never learned anything like that before. I had no idea that this is called the Dugu 9 swords, Ling Huchang replied. If you haven't learned it before, how come you are able to recite it? Feng Qingyang asked. I just memorized it when you read it just now, Ling Huchang answered. Well, good memory. Hey, this might work. Feng Qingyang slapped his thigh in excitement. Although you won't be able to learn the whole thing, you can simply memorize it. It would be alright if we only learn half of the third move. Now remember these. Wei Mei tends towards Wu Wang. Wu Wang tends towards Tong Ren. Tong Ren tends towards Da Yao. He went on and recited over 300 words before finally saying, Give it a try. Recite it. I like how learning martial arts is just reciting like some words. Oof. Kunshan says, it's pretty much gibberish even to me, a native Mandarin speaker. Well, we don't need to memorize. Oh man. Hey, you guys. Kunshan. You should learn how to read it. Like if you can memorize all of it, you'll become like a great grand master of martial arts. Ling Huchong had been staying very focused, trying to memorize the script. After getting the go, he started reciting and only missed 10 words or so. Feng Qingyang corrected them. The second time, when Ling Huchong recited them, he only missed 7 words. By the time he finished reciting the script a third time, he didn't miss any word at all. 300 words. Excellent! Excellent! Feng Qingyang was very pleased. He then taught Ling Huchong another section of the script, about 300 words long. After Ling Huchong memorized those as well, he taught the next section of about 300 words to Ling Huchong. The general index of the Dugu 9 swords had a total of over 3,000 words. Besides, the contents of the script weren't really connected to each other logically. So even though Ling Huchong had extraordinary memorizing abilities, he still couldn't help but remember parts of it while forgetting other parts. It took him over 2 hours and many reminders from Feng Qingyang to finally memorize the entire script with no errors. 2 hours to memorize 3,000 words? Man, come on. Can you even call yourself an Asian? Nikki says martial arts isn't what I thought it was. Feng Qingyang made him recite the script from the very beginning to the very end another 3 times, and was finally convinced that he had memorized all of them. The general index is the key and foundation of the Dugu 9 swords. Even though you have memorized it at the moment, you only did it by ear for the sake of saving time while having no idea about the theories behind. You can forget about it as easily. From now on, you must recite it days and nights. Yes, Ling Huchong answered. The first move of the Dugu 9 swords, General Index Stance, has many variations to implement the General Index script. Let's not rush into that one yet. The second move, Sword Breaking Stance, can be used to overcome sword arts from every single school or cult in the world. No need to rush into that one either. The third move, Knife Breaking Stance, can be used to overcome knife moves of single knife, double knives, willow leaf cutlass, ghost beheaded saber, large cleaver, horse cutting blade, and so on. Jianbo Guang is using the fast knife chops technique. Out of the single knife moves, let's focus on learning the part about how to overcome his knife techniques specifically tonight. Realizing that the second move of the Dugu 9 swords could overcome all the sword arts from all the schools and clans out there, and the third move of the Dugu 9 swords could overcome all the knife moves, while feeling stunned, Ling Huchong couldn't help but show his joy. The 9 stances must be very brilliant. I have never heard of it before. Because of the great excitement, his voice trembled. Your master probably has never seen the moves of the Dugu 9 swords, but he sure has heard about the name Dugu 9 swords before. He just doesn't want to mention it to you, that's all, Feng Qingyang said. Why is that? Ling Huchong asked with surprise. Feng Qingyang didn't answer the question and went on explaining the moves. Why don't you answer the question? The third move, Bright Knife Breaking Stance, stresses on using light to resist heavy and using fast to overcome slow. The chopped Jianbo Guang's fast knife chops are surely very fast, so you will have to be even faster than him. For a young lad like you, it's probably okay to try to be faster than him. You might win or you might lose. There's no guaranteed success. For an old rotten folk like me, if I still wanted to be faster than him, then the only solution would be launching my attack before he even starts his. If you can foresee what kind of a move he will be using, and then scramble before him, before the enemy even raised his hand, your sword is already pointing at his vital parts. That way, no matter how fast your enemy is, you will be faster. Yes. So it teaches about how to anticipate the enemy beforehand. Ling Huchong nodded again and again. Good, you got it, Feng Qingyang praised as he applauded. Anticipating the enemy beforehand is precisely the key to this set of sword techniques. Before anyone executes a move, there will always be many signs that you can catch. If he plans to slash toward your left arm with his next chop, then he will certainly cast a glance at your left arm. And if his knife is in the lower right part at the time, then of course he will raise his knife in an arc before swishing his blade down in an angle. So the apparently the philosophy of this Dugu Nine Swords is to is to counter the opponent's moves by predicting what he will do before he does it. Okay. So you predict, you look at like little signs of what the enemy will do, and then you use your move before the enemy does it. So apparently that's how it can defeat all of the moves of all of the different schools and clans. Hey Amanda, what's up? Welcome back. Feng Qingyang went on and explained all the variations in the third sword stance that would overcome fast knife chops, one by one in great details. Ling Hucheng felt so relaxed and happy as he listened in. He almost felt like that he was a country boy who had just entered the inner circle of the royal palace, and every single thing he saw or heard was new and interesting. The third sword stance had very complicated variations, and within the limited time, Ling Hucheng was only able to comprehend about 20% of it. He simply worked hard on memorizing the rest. The teacher taught enthusiastically, and the student studied energetically. Both of them lost track of time completely. Suddenly, Tianbo Guang shouted outside of the cave, "Brother Linghu, it's daybreak now. Are you awake yet?" "Wow, it's daybreak already," Ling Hucheng uttered. "It's a pity that we had so little time," Feng Qingyang sighed. "You've learned very quickly, way beyond my expectation already. Go ahead and fight him," he said. "Yes," Ling Hucheng answered. He closed his eyes and went through the gist of all the things he had learned during the night in his head. Suddenly, he opened his eyes and asked, "Grand Uncle Master, I still have one more question. Why are all the variations attacking techniques with no defending ones at all?" "Dugu Nine Swords, once stepping in, never steps back. Every technique is an attacking technique. When you force your enemy to have no other choice but to defend himself, of course there's no need to defend yourself." I like it. I like it. You only attack. It's only attack. No defense. Senior Master Dugu seeking a loss. Cool name, bro. Senior Master Dugu seeking a loss, who created this set of sword techniques, had a name, Seeking a Loss. He had been seeking a loss all his life, and still couldn't get one. Once the sword techniques were executed, he would become unmatched anywhere in the world. Why would he have to defend? If anyone could have forced him to draw his sword back and defend himself, the respectful master would have burst with joy and be delighted beyond measure, Feng Qingyang said. Dugu seeking a loss. Dugu seeking a loss, Ling Hucheng murmured as he imagined how the senior master had wandered about the martial world, unmatched anywhere, with only his sword, and couldn't even find a single one who was capable of forcing him into a defending stance. That was truly admirable. So this martial arts was from this super grand master back in the day who never lost a fight. So Ling Hucheng masters this martial arts, then he'll be super powerful. Defense are for posses. Defense are for posses. For possums. That's funny, Nikki. Where am I? Hurry up! Come out! Let me give you 2 more cuts! Tianbo Guang's voice rose again. I'm coming, Ling Hucheng replied. I am very concerned about one thing right now. Feng Qingyang knitted his eyebrows together. When you go out to fight him, if he injures your right arm or right wrist, As soon as the fight breaks out, then you would be incapable to leave and leave yourself at his mercy. I'm quite worried about that. I'll do my best, Grand Uncle Master. You didn't waste all that time teaching me with all your heart. I won't let you down, no matter what, Ling Huchong said, fearlessly, in high spirits. As soon as he stepped out of the cave, he immediately put on a dejected and apathetic face. After a yawn, a stretch, and then some rubbing into his eyes, he finally said to Tian Boguang, Hey, Brother Tian, you got up too early. Didn't you have a good rest last night? In the meantime, he was actually thinking to himself, all I need to do is hold out through this current one. If I get to study several more hours, I would never be afraid of him again. Brother Ling Hu, Tian Boguang said as he raised his knife, I really don't intend to hurt you, but you are simply too stubborn and won't go down Mount Huashan with me. If we continue fighting like this, I'll be forced to add 10 or 20 more cuts on you and have you beaten black and blue. Wouldn't that be too bad for you? Ling Huchong suddenly got an idea. You don't even need to add 10 or 20 more cuts on me. All you need to do is cut my right arm off or injure my right hand so I can't use a sword. Then wouldn't I be at your disposal as you wish, either to kill me or take me prisoner? I only want you to admit your loss. Why do I want to injure your right arm or right hand? Tian Boguang shook his head. Ling Huchong was overjoyed, yet he put on a very depressed face. I am afraid that you are just saying it right now. Once you get mad because of your losses, you would spare no efforts in using all kinds of cruel and vicious tactics, he complained. You don't have to goad me. First, I have no grudges against you. Secondly, I respect you as a true man with integrity. Thirdly, if I injure you too badly, I am afraid someone might come and give me trouble. Go ahead, Tian Boguang said. All right, Brother Tian, please, go ahead, Ling Huchong replied. Tian Boguang gave a fake slash and immediately followed it with a tilted chop. His blade flashed in the sunshine with blinding reflections, and the chop looked very vicious. Ling Huchong was about to overcome it with one of the variations in the third sword stance out of the Dugu 9 swords, but Tian Boguang's knife moves came too fast. By the time he was going to attack, the knife move had already changed. He was just one step too slow. How terrible! How terrible! I can't even be fast enough to use the newly learned sword techniques. Grand Uncle Master must be calling me an idiot right now, Ling Huchong groaned inwardly in great worries. After a few more moves, cold sweat started rolling down Ling Huchong's forehead. But in Tian Boguang's eyes, his sword techniques looked extremely fierce, and every move seemed as if it was the exact restraint to Tian's knife moves. Tian Boguang couldn't help but feel worried. He could have killed me with the last several sword techniques. Why did he slow it down and just a little bit, intentionally? He thought aloud. Oh, I got it. He is being lenient and wants to beat me into a retreat in the face of difficulties. But even though I see the difficulties, I can't simply retreat. I have to hold out with all my might. Because of these thoughts, with every chop, he dared not to use all his strength, and made sure he would always have extra energy left in case of an emergency. The two dreaded each other, and both fought in a very cautious manner. After a while, Tian Boguang gradually increased his knife chopping speed, and Ling Huchong also became more familiar with the variations of the Dugu 9 swords' third sword stance. While lights of the knife and the sword flashed, the two fought faster and faster. Suddenly, Tian Boguang let out a loud roar as he threw a kick with his right foot, which struck Ling Huchong in the stomach. Ling Huchong fell down, facing up. In the split of a second, Ling Huchong thought, all I need is another day and night. This time, tomorrow, I am sure I can beat him. He let go of his sword, shut his eyes tight, held his breath, and pretended to be knocked out cold. Seeing that Ling Huchong laid on the ground unconscious, Tian Boguang was stunned. But knowing that Ling Huchong was cunning and crafty, he dared not to bend over to check, afraid that Ling Huchong might jump up and attack all of a sudden to seek a victory from a defeat. So he crossed his blade in front of him and then took a couple of steps closer. Brother Ling Hu, are you alright? He called out. He called a few more times and found Ling Hu Chong finally regaining himself slowly with little breathing. Let's fight again, Ling Hu Chong said in a trembling voice. He struggled to stand up, but halfway up his left leg gave out, and he fell on the ground again. You are not going to make it. Why don't you have a good rest for a day, and then follow me down Mount Huashan tomorrow? Xiang Boguang suggested. Ling Hu Chong didn't express any opinion of his and pushed the ground with one hand, trying to stand up while panting hard. With no more doubts, Xiang Boguang took a step forward and grabbed onto Ling Hu Chong's right arm to prop him up. But when he took the step forward, his foot happened to step on top of Ling Hu Chong's longsword on the ground, and while guarding himself with the knife in his right hand, his grip also happened to grab onto a pressure point on Ling Hu Chong's right arm to make sure Ling Hu Chong couldn't play any tricks. Ling Hu Chong's entire body Ling Hu Chong's entire body weight hung onto Xiang Boguang's left arm, and he appeared to be completely weak and frail. Who asked for your help, damn it? Ling Hu Chong swore and then limped back into the cave. I think that's the trick. He's pretending to be hurt. Hey, you just gained an entire day and night without any effort. Don't you think it was a bit despicable and shameless? Fang Qingyang said with a smile. Well, when you are dealing with despicable and shameless people, I suppose a small, despicable and shameless trick would be acceptable, Ling Hu Chong laughed. What if you are dealing with a gentleman? Fang Qingyang asked with a serious face. A gentleman? Ling Hu Chong was taken by surprise and became speechless. What are you going to do if you are dealing with a gentleman? Fang Qingyang fixed his piercing eyes on Ling Hu Chong's face and asked coldly. Well, even though he is a gentleman, if he wants to kill me, I can't just let him. When I have to, I guess I will have to use a little bit of the despicable and shameless tricks, Ling Hu Chong answered. Fang Qingyang was delighted beyond measurement. Great, great. If you can say that, then you are not a hypocrite who only pretends to do good, he said loudly. A true man does things to his own like, just like floating clouds and flowing water, natural and smooth, come and go freely. Rules of the martial world or regulations of schools and clans are all complete bull. I feel like he's teaching him something. Ling Hu Chong let out a slight smile. Every word of Fang Qingyang had struck a chord in his heart and made him feel indescribable joy. But since Master had been repeatedly admonishing him that even if one had to give up his own life, he should never defame the great reputation of the Huashan Sword School by breaking school rules or violating regulations of the martial world, he really couldn't echo Grand Uncle Master's point publicly. Besides, the words hypocrite who only pretends to do good seemed to be satirizing his master's nickname of Gentleman's Sword, so he only let out a slight smile and didn't chime in. Remember, his master Yue Buchun's moniker is Gentleman's Sword, because he's a gentleman. Fang Qingyang reached out with his wizened fingers and stroked Ling Hu Chong's hair gently, a bright smile blossoming on his face. Among Yue Buchun's apprentices, there are actually good talents, like you. That chap does have some taste. He wasn't a complete loser. The chap he had mentioned, of course, meant Yue Buchun. And he just can't stop criticizing Yue Buchun. Kid, you really suit my taste. Come on, let's practice some more of the great hero Dugu's first sword stance and the third sword stance. Fang Qingyang patted on Ling Hu Chong's shoulder. Fang Qingyang went ahead and picked some key issues in the first sword stance of the Dugu Nine Swords to explain to Ling Hu Chong. After Ling Hu Chong comprehended them, he then explained in detail the related variations in the third sword stance with both words and gestures. There were some long swords in the back cave, so both of them used Huashan-style longswords to demonstrate and perform. Ling Hu Chong memorized everything with all his heart, and every time when he had a question, he would ask it right away. Because they had plenty of time during the day, the learning process wasn't as intense as the night before, and each stance and variation could be explained and demonstrated in great detail. After dinner, Ling Hucheng slept for 4 hours and then continued with the learning. The next morning, Tian Boguang was convinced that Ling Hucheng had been injured pretty badly the previous day, so he didn't even press with his shouts outside this time. Ling Hucheng was just happy that he could continue learning sword techniques at the back cave. By the time of about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, Ling Hucheng had learned all the variations in the third sword stance of the Dugu 9 swords completely. It's no big deal if you can't beat him today. If you get to study for another day and night, I am sure you will win tomorrow, no matter what, Huang Qingyang declared. Ling Wuchang nodded and then walked out of the cave slowly, with the longsword left by a senior grand master of the Huashan Sword School in hand. When he saw Tian Boguang looking into the distance from the edge of the cliff, he put on a pretended surprised face. Why, Brother Tian, how come you are still here? I am waiting for you. Sorry about the offense yesterday. Are you feeling better today? I didn't see anything getting better. The wound on my leg from your knife chop is still hurting pretty badly. That day when we fought in Hangyang town, your wounds were a lot more severe than today. Yet you never said anything to give the impression of weakness. I know you have a whole bag of tricks. When you strike a pose to show your weakness, you're probably thinking about an attack. I am not going to fall for it, Jiang Boguang said with a smile. You have already fallen for it. Even if you can figure it out right now, it would still be too late. Ling Hucheng's face split into a big smile. Brother Tian, look out! At the exact moment of his last word, Ling Hucheng thrust his sword at Tian Boguang's chest. Tian Boguang raised his knife hurriedly to parry it, but his knife hit nothing. Meanwhile, Ling Hucheng's second thrust had arrived. Excellent speed, Tian Boguang praised as he crossed his knife to block the attack. But Ling Hucheng had already launched his third and fourth thrusts. I've got some even faster ones, Ling Hucheng declared. He immediately thrust out the fifth and the sixth attacks. Once he started his attacks, each thrust was followed by another continuous thrust, and each thrust was faster than the previous one. He had really grasped the essence of the Dugu 9 swords. Once stepping in, never step back, and every thrust is an attack. After 10 moves or so, Tian Boguang became terror-stricken. He had no clue how to fend off the endless attacks. Every time when Ling Hucheng lunged a thrust, he would take a step back. After another 10 thrusts, he had retreated to the very brink of the cliff. Ling Hucheng didn't slow down his attack one bit, and with 4 whistling sounds, he lunged another 4 thrusts, all of which pointing at Tian Boguang's vital parts. Tian Boguang worked his best and parried 2 of the thrusts away, but could not fend off the third thrust in any way. He stepped back with his left foot, but his foot only landed on emptiness. He knew clearly that it was a bottomless abyss behind him, and anyone falling down it would be smashed to pieces. At the critical moments, he chopped down at the ground with all of his strength and was able to stabilize himself right on the edge. By then, the 4th thrust from Ling Hucheng had arrived, and the tip of the sword stopped inches short from his throat. Tian Boguang's face was as white as a sheet of paper. Ling Hucheng didn't let out a sound either, and simply remained still with the sword tip right next to Tian's throat. Go ahead and kill me. What are you waiting for? Tian Boguang yelled angrily after a long silence. Ling Hucheng pulled his right hand back and leapt several big steps backward. Brother Tian, you just had an oversight and permitted me to take the initiative. This one doesn't count. Let's fight again, he said. Tian Boguang let out a loud snort and then waved his knife madly in a thunderstorm-like attack toward Ling Hucheng. I'll attack first this time. I am not going to let you get the advantage again, he shouted. Seeing the fierce chop of the steel blade coming toward him, Ling Hucheng jabbed his sword in an angle toward Tian Boguang's lower stomach while turning his upper body to dodge away from the sharp knife blade. Done. Oh, we're at chapter 10, which is we're one chapter away from the end of book 1. Is it volume 1 or book 1? Whatever. At the end, we're almost at the end of volume 1. All right, did you guys like this chapter? So he learned a lot. I think the he learned all. He learned what did he learn? He learned the best way to fight, right, is to just forget all about your moves, right? Just fight with no moves. Just use your intuition and just let things flow like water. Then he learned this Dugu 9 swords martial arts from this grandmaster from a long time ago who was undefeated. And I think if he masters this Dugu 9 swords, he's gonna be a really powerful person in the martial world. It's literally a cliffhanger, yeah, literally. Alrighty. Drift asks, "Are you going to read Volume 2 once you get to it?" No, we're gonna end Volume 1. We're gonna stop this. Just kidding. Yeah, I'm gonna read the entire book. Of course, we can't just leave off at chapter 10. It's got 4 books or 4 volumes. So yeah. Like guys, things get real, like things get crazy. Like this story, things get really fucked up. So I think you're gonna like it. All right, guys. Do our usual, a shot. If you have a shot at home, just do it with me. All right, cheers. Oh. George says one of your favorites. Oof. Got to see an evil rapist get beat up for a couple of days straight. Awesome. Xiaobo Guang seems like a decent guy. You forget all about the raping and sexual assaults. All right, guys. I will see you next week. All right, thanks for coming. And I love you. See you next week. Do, 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 do.